Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. If everybody could take their seats, please. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 27th. It's currently 7 o'clock. Before I get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. That'd be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'd like to call to order the meeting. The agenda needs to be adjusted. The recommendation would be that the agenda of May 27th regular council meeting be amended by moving item 11A, Anmore South Official Community Plan OCP Amendment Application and Neighborhood Plan Community Engagement Phase 2 and Phase 2 and Phase 3 Summary Report to immediately following item 9A. So we're going to be doing after that. So at the agenda, so if someone could move the amended agenda. Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Public input. Matters raised here for council's consideration should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Please limit comments to 2 minutes and save questions for question period later in the meeting. And we do have a timer, hopefully everybody can see. So open up for public input. Okay. Okay.
I have something to talk about that was on last meeting agenda. Infill, is that okay?
Sorry, that's not on tonight's agenda.
Sorry?
It's not on tonight's agenda. Sorry.
So I can't talk about
that
at all.
I'm sorry. You can ask it later on at public question period at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can talk about it then?
Then, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Harriet Chang, 147 Fern Drive. I'd like to talk about transportation routes. Fire in Paradise is a documentary about a devastating fire in California in 2018, claiming 85 lives. Paradise was close to numerous water features and had an excellent fire department. Caused by a malfunctioning electrical transmission line, the fire spread rapidly as a result of very dry conditions and strong winds. The main cause of death was due to an insufficient road infrastructure network to allow all citizens to evacuate. Residents were literally burned to death fleeing in their vehicles. Paradise had many fire hydrants, but some ran dry during the fire. The Lytton, BC fire, which destroyed 90% of its town, also had sufficient fire hydrants. However, due to fire-related complications, many became useless. Jasper's fire hydrants also failed. Since we have lived in Anmore, there have been a number of fires which could have been much more serious. An Anmore resident found burnt embers from the May 12th fire on Countryside Village on their property located over 500 meters away. Fortunately, their lawn was wet that morning. Only 2 single-lane roads serve both Anmore and Belcarra, a combined population of over 3,000, plus the Port Moody residents who live on and around Ioko Road. The number of vehicles using this road network is already substantial and is significantly greater during the summer months when it is hot and dry and the beaches are packed. Anmore is not immune to wind. Anmore is not immune to dry summer conditions, and Anmore is not immune to climate change. Fortunately, our population is only around 2,500. Based on my research, as climate changes become more extreme, it is absolutely critical that Anmore takes drastic action to implement measures to improve our transportation infrastructure system before we are faced with a catastrophic fire.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next. Please, there's going to be no clapping or we will suspend the meeting. I will warn, that's the last warning we have, that we will be suspending the meeting and taking a recess if there's any clapping at all. So, any further comments on public input? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. 9A, Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication, Mount Murray Amendment Bylaw number 716-2025. Mr. Joseph. If you could bring the mic a little closer.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Mayor McEwen. So, the Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication memory amendment bylaw number 716/2025. The motion on the table is to be rescinded the first, second, and third reading. Staff noted that there's a clerical error which didn't include Schedule A to the bylaw, which was a reference plan for the road closure bylaw. So the motion on the table is that first, second, and third reading of Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication memory amendment bylaw number 716/2025 be rescinded, and that Anmore closure and removal of highway dedication memory amendment bylaw number 716/2025 be read a first, second, and third time as amended.
Good. Can I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We'll now move on to Anmore South Official Community Plan Amendment, the Community Engagement Phase 2 and Phase 3 Summary Report. Ms. Nicholson.
Thank you. I first would like to introduce my team members here who are here to assist me with any questions that council may have. First, I have with me here Mario Canseco, who is the president of Research Co. And he designed and managed the Phase 3 community survey, including the development of the questionnaire and the methodology for implementing the survey. Mario is highly respected, and he has an impressive track record as an electoral forecaster and in the field of research through surveys and opinion polls. You'll likely have seen him regularly in the news media, as he's a research expert who is regularly sought after as a commentator on political and sociological issues. So we're extremely fortunate to have someone with his expertise with this phase of the engagement. I also would like to introduce my other colleague here, Christy Dick with Lucent Key, the company that's been working with the Village Engagement team to support us. And Christy has IAP2 certification, and she develops and implements engagement and communications programs for high-profile, complex projects in the transportation, infrastructure, and housing sectors. Kirsty is also an accomplished facilitator in stakeholder relations, public engagement, and community planning, and has been integral to the implementation of the village-led engagement process. So first wanted to introduce them, as they may be assisting me with any questions. So first off, I do want to note that this presentation and the engagement summary report are focused on Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the community engagement. In general, we have had 3 completed phases with this engagement summary report. The first was April 1st to June 3rd for Phase 1, and that was, June 30th in 2024. In Phase 2, really went from July 1st to December 31st, 2024. And then Phase 3 was January 1st to May 4th, 2025. And Phase 4 has not started yet. So the targeted outcomes that we had as part of Phase 2 was to achieve broad representation of Anmore residents. We were looking to increase awareness and understanding of the 3 land use scenario options being considered by Council in Phase 2, as well as to inform the community about the direction that was provided by Council to develop a preferred plan, which is the plan that was then used in Phase 3, and then to increase awareness and understanding about the next steps in the process. So the summary report that I'm sharing is overall, as I said, a summary of those Phase 2 and Phase 3 activities. I do want to say that Phase 2 was primarily focused on inform, but we did have a bit of consult opportunities through the Have Your Say platform, where people were able to submit questions and comments. And we also hosted an information tent at the Maumee Day, where we did some informal polls. One of the things that we strive for in the community engagement process is to use as many different ways possible that we can manage to reach out to the community, to notify them about opportunities to provide input, and to inform them about where we're at with this process. So this is a very high level from the report of Phase 2 engagement. So there was 760 views of the Anmore South webpage, which is a dedicated page on the village website. There was 568 visits to the Have Your Say Anmore, which is the engagement website. And what's interesting about that one too is of those 568, 112 are informed visitors, which means that they clicked on additional information, such as downloading a document like a PDF, or they visited multiple pages within the Have Your Say site. There was 4 engaged visitors, so that means they submitted a question or a comment, and then 318 aware visitors, so they visited at least one page. So that's a significant number for this size of a community. We also had 3 Facebook posts where we had some 12 comments, 7 shares. We had 55 visitors who dropped by the Maumee information booth. We delivered a flyer to 820 residents, and there was 3 emails where there's 603 recipients. So that's an average, because the number of recipients that get the email notification from the village go up and down a little bit because people can pull their name off or add their name to the list, but on average about 603. And we also left the display boards up with the information around phase 2. We had them up in the village hub for 3 months. As I mentioned, the focus in phase 2 was on inform, so that's where the bulk of the effort was with the activities. However, we did have 34 of our visitors at the Maumee Day tent who participated in a short poll. We had 34 of the visitors who participated in the poll indicated they were from Anmore, and all of them who participated in the poll said yes, they were aware of the project. 10 of them had participated in the engagement for phase 1. Then we had about 5 people who participated in the poll who did not know about the project but did not live in Anmore. The questions and comments that were posted, there was only 7 that were posted in that time period, and it was from 4 contributors. And then we received 2 emails to the village engagement team email. So the themes from phase 2 are pretty short, and that's largely because it wasn't focused on consult, but some of the key questions we received on Have Your Say in that time period were questions about current and future ownership of Anmore South, questions about environmental studies, questions about Icona's development history. There was a suggestion to build towers in a concentrated area rather than in a low-rise community, and just general questions about the proposed tree retention. And then in the discussions that we had with people who came to the tent, again, these are just high-level themes, keeping in mind this is based on about 55 people, so this is not a large sample group. But in general, there was concerns related to insufficient traffic infrastructure. There was support for having a Metro Vancouver sewer connection. There was support for densification. There was concerns that the Mossam Creek hatchery had not had enough involvement in the process, and concerns that public input would not truly be considered in the planning decisions. So we also did an activity at the Maumee Day tent where we invited people to drop marbles into jars and to let us know, because as we were moving into phase 3, we wanted to hear from the community on what did they think would work well for them for community engagement. How would they like to receive information, and how would they like to share information through the consultation process? And so it was just an activity where they would drop a marble in the bar or in a jar, or they could write an idea down. So we had, the most popular one was newsletters in the mail as far as how they wanted to receive information, as well as the email notifications and open houses. So those were kind of the top 3. But as you can see, there was also support for workshops, small group meetings, Have Your Say Anmore, and community surveys, and then one each, one for a referendum, one for a town hall, and one for a public OCP review. Phase 3 was the big engagement that we did starting in January, and this one was absolutely focused on both inform and consult. And as well, for this phase, we did go back to council to present an engagement plan for how we would manage in phase 3, and we received that approval, and we followed that plan for the engagement. The overall engagement process has adhered to the framework that we presented at the start as well. So in phase 3, what we were, again, striving for is to have broad representation of Anmore residents. We wanted to increase awareness and understanding of the technical studies that were done in phase 3 and the analysis being completed. We also wanted to gain insight into the community's perspectives on Icona's vision for Anmore South and how this vision would be implemented compared to the current RS1 zoning. And we wanted to achieve an informed community that is aware of the process, how it's being followed, as well as how their input will be used. So this engagement summary report is a good chunk of that last bullet, where we have pulled together the key themes of what we've heard, where we've pulled together some of the data for the quantitative that several members of council wanted us to have through the community survey, as well as in the appendix, the very long list of the verbatim comments that come through our different methods for engagement. Through this process, again, a lot of interest, over 3,547 views on the Anmore South webpage, which is the anmore.com page, 1,500 visits to Have Your Say Anmore, and of those 1,500 visitors, that's just from January 1st to May 4th, there was 16 engaged visitors, so that means that they posted questions or made comments. 271 informed visitors, that means that they clicked on additional information, and 712 aware visitors. So as our priority was to have an informed community, and there was a lot of information to share during this phase of engagement. So one of the things that we requested was that there would be summaries of the technical studies so that people who wanted to read the whole study could do so, people who wanted to read a shorter version could do so, and we also provided highlights of the various studies in a 12-page direct mail that was sent to the various households. So that was 841 flyers that were sent out. We also did a midpoint as part of the Anmore Advisor, an update to the community in the Anmore Advisor newsletter. We also, as part of this process, had 6 Facebook posts to remind people about the opportunities for the open house and the survey, and part of that included 14 comments and 9 shares. And we sent out 6 of the notification emails to an average of about 616 recipients for each one. We put up, one of the things we did this time is over and above the village outdoor sign, which we've made use of through this engagement process, we also in this phase did signs in high traffic areas. So there was actually a total of 6 signs that were up in the community to make them aware of the community survey and the open house. And then we also sent out newsletter emails to community groups and committee members. So the emails to the committee members, we sent out, for example, 22 emails to invite committee members to the committee workshop. We sent out emails to local community groups asking them to get the word out to their members. And we sent out the emails to, of course, the members of the Finance Committee. So those are what those emails are. And all of this was about notifying people about what was going on, how they could be involved, where they could get more information, as well as providing them with information. On the consult side, the big things that we did in this round were the technical open house and the community survey. So the 66 comment cards that you're seeing there are from those who filled in comment cards at the open house. We also received 52 questions on Have Your Say Anmore, questions and comments, from 16 contributors. And we sent out, as part of Section 475 and 476 of the Local Government Act, the referral process. That involves sending out 73 referral letters. We got 12 replies. We also had 13 participants in workshops and meetings, and 402 respondents to the community survey, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. And at the committee workshop, I should also say that the committee workshop, we did send out 22 invitations to committee members, and we had 6 people who attended at the committee workshop. And then, of course, we had all members of council and 2 community committee members at the Finance Committee. And then at the open house, we had 145 participants who attended. Okay, I'm now going to give you a little bit of information about what we learned through the community survey. As I mentioned, throughout this process, certainly phase 1, all of phase 1, we did not have any quantitative data. We just have key themes that we've heard from people. And as we heard from some members of council wanted the more quantitative information at this phase. And it was also in the community engagement framework, I had recommended that this would be, phase 3 would be the time for a community survey to get some of that data. And so we had good representation in this survey with 402 respondents. And my colleague can talk to you a little bit more about what that is and why that's such a great number for this size of community. Of them, 381 of the respondents indicated that their primary residence was in Anmore. So if we base that on the 2021 census population of 2,356, that represents about 16% of village residents who responded to the survey, and about 19% of adults, again, based on the census then. Of course, that doesn't take into account people who aged into adulthood in that time. So there are also about, just in general, keeping in mind, there's about, based on the last mail out that we did, about 840 properties in Anmore. So we also achieved a good balance of male and female respondents that was in line with the census. And for the age groups, what we saw was there was a higher than, compared to census, number of representation in the 35 to 54 age group and the 55 to 65 age group. And the representation for those who rent versus those who own their home was also consistent with the census. So not easy for people maybe to read on there, but I'll give you some of the information. So 95% of the people who responded to the survey live in Anmore. There were, in the different groups, 15% are in the 18 to 34. Then we had 37% in the 35 to 54. We had 33% in the 55 to 65, and we had 14% in the 65 plus. The other thing we have there is we have information about the number of years in the community. So it was a fairly small number. Only 5% were living in the community for less than 2 years, and then about 15% from 2 to 5 years. So 27% had been living here for more than 20 years, and 25% in the 6 to 10 years. So generally, the people who are responding to this have lived in the community for a good chunk of time. The other one, again, not surprisingly, based on our census data, is 84% of the people who responded to the survey indicated that they owned their own home, and 7% indicated that they rent, and then 9% indicated that they prefer not to say. So I'm going to go through some of the key themes with this, from what we heard. And of course, there's a lot of information in there, but these are the high-level themes of what we heard in the survey. So one of the things I do want important to note that key themes are not quantitative input. Okay, these are pulling together themes from the open-ended comments that people made, and it just represents the input from those who chose to participate in the survey, and specifically the open-ended questions. And we do want to note that those, in general, in this survey, those who indicated that the various close-ended questions were important, so if they indicated that it was important, we did note that those people generally did not often respond to the open-ended or had very minimal comments in the open-ended. So those who provided a lot more of these key themes were those who indicated that they did not feel some of these things were important. So if we look at this, the housing choices was widely discussed in the survey. There were frequent concerns expressed about preserving Anmore's rural character and opposition to high-density housing. I do want to say that the opposition to high-density housing included questions about why council was not telling the property owner to submit a land use plan for 1/3 or 1/2 acre development instead of what was being proposed. There is interest in a diverse but character-sensitive housing options such as townhomes, carriage houses, and options for aging in place was something that came up fairly frequently in the housing forms and choices. In the area of transportation, traffic and transportation, traffic was a dominant concern throughout the engagement, particularly regarding the increased congestion, traffic related to construction vehicles moving through the community during development, emergency vehicle access and evacuation routes, public transit inadequacies, active transportation infrastructure, and pedestrian safety. We also heard through this that public transparency, and public engagement came up as some key themes where there was concerns related to transparency of the planning process and whether the feedback would be genuinely influencing the outcome of the OCP amendment. And a desire for a referendum on the decision was a prevailing theme throughout this process, this entire phase of engagement, not just on the survey. Another key theme that we heard through this process in the parks and natural areas, and again, this was came up fairly regularly, that there was many comments related to tree retention, environmental protection, trail connectivity, and opposition to clear cutting. There was both support and opposition expressed for more parks and sports fields, with some respondents interested in more opportunities for outdoor recreation within the community, and others who commented that existing green spaces are sufficient for Anmore and anything beyond that can be available in other communities. In general, the perspectives on the future of Anmore, and again, this applies beyond just the survey, this is generally through the whole phase, is very polarized views on the overall plan. That's also consistent that we've heard this right from the start. From phase one, we heard about half were saying, yes, we would like to see this kind of development, and half were saying, no, we would like it to be developed the same way as the rest of Anmore. So it wasn't a big shift in this phase, it was consistent. With these two polarized views of the overall plan. The feedback was that there was, support for development and an evolution community, but also there was also feedback saying fears of over-urbanization, loss of the community identity, and wanting to maintain that, like I said, not necessarily 1 acre, although there's some who support 1 acre. There was also some who said, it could just be like Ravenswood or other areas like that. So there was kind of a mix, but it was really sort of a 50-50 split that we saw. So then that gets into some of the closed-ended questions, and this is where we have our quantitative data that we're looking for. So the housing mix, we provided information on the RS1, we provided information of what the preferred plan was proposing in terms of a mix of diversity of housing types, and we listed the different housing types that were being considered. And the question was to measure how important a broader mix of housing options are in Anmore, and 52% indicated it was important, 48% saying not important. And of that 52%, you can see that 41% said it was very important, 11% somewhat, and we had 12% saying not 2%, not too important, and 36% saying not important at all. So then we also looked, though, in the different age groups, how does that vary when we get into the different age groups? And so in the 18 to 34 years, not percent, that shifted up to 61% who felt it was important and 38% not important. Oh, and I also should say that some of these won't add up to 100% because of rounding. So that I should have mentioned that at the start. The not important group was the 35 to 54 age group who said, 42% important and 58% not important. But then the next two age groups of basically 55 to 65 plus was 56% saying it was important. So, and just in general, again, not a big surprise, but if you look at the own rent, you see that kind of split where 85% of renters who participated in the survey said they felt that it was important to have a mix of housing, and 48% of those who owned their homes who participated in the survey said they felt it was important. Those who preferred not to say what their housing type was, that was 54% said it was important. We also wanted to get a sense of how well they felt that this was addressing the housing need in the community based on the housing needs assessment. And so this question was basically how well has this approach addressed, how well has this housing mix addressed the housing needs assessment? So here we have, again, 47% felt it was addressing it well, but 50% didn't feel it was addressing it well, and 2% weren't sure. And then when we get into the age breakdown, we start seeing those ages coming up again, where 63% of that younger age groups, 18 to 34, who responded said it addressed well. Again, those who really felt it didn't address well, 62% was in the 35 to 54, and then the ages 55 to 65 plus were fairly consistent there, with 53 and 51% thinking it addressed it well. And we again saw a big disparity between rent and own, where 79% of renters felt it addressed it well, and 44% who own felt not. 54% who preferred not to say felt it addressed well. And again, just for context, again, just as a reminder for everyone, that the reason we were asking these questions was this is intended to help inform council's decision-making on some of these key factors that differentiate the preferred plan from the existing zoning as the two things that are being, applications in place. So we also wanted to have an understanding of the importance of things like parks and trails and natural areas, because those have come up and those are some of the differentiators between the two applications. So we asked people about natural areas' importance to them. This is one where the community was consistent right across the board, where preserving natural areas, everyone feels that's very important. Well, not everyone. Everyone who responded, 82% felt it was important. 59% very important, 23%. So this was something where it was a more consistent response from the respondents. And then again, this one right across the age groups of the respondents, that this was something that was considered important. A little bit different though when we get into the parks and trails. So parks and trails, because there is a difference in the amount of parks and trails in the two, that's why we asked this question. So 61% felt that was important, 38% not very important or not as important. And we're seeing a consistent pattern here for these results as well, where our younger age group, 18 to 34, 67% felt it was important, and the older ages of 55 to 65 plus, again, that's 63% and 60% important, and that 35 to 54 age group, they still said it was important, but not as high as the other groups. Another differentiator in this process is the recreation facility. So we wanted to get that sense. 55% of respondents felt that it was important to have expanded recreation opportunities in the community, 44% not important. And as we go through again, we've got the same breakdown. It's consistent right across the board, where that the 35 to 54 age group is the one that is seeing it as less important. The other three age groups are higher, 60+%. And then one of the other key differentiators, of course, is the addition of commercial services in the preferred plan, which would not be part of an RS1. So what we wanted to get a sense of is how important is this one? And this is much closer, where 51% saying it's important, 48% saying not important. And again, just a reminder about the rounding for the reason why it doesn't add up to 100. And we again see that same breakdown in terms of the age groups, where the 18 to 34-year-olds are saying 63% are saying it's important, 55 to 65 plus are saying 60 and 65%. The most notable there is the 65 plus. That was the group of respondents who gave it the highest, and then the ages of 35 to 54 saying about 45% important, and 53% said it's not important. Oh, sorry, I was reading from the wrong one. That's not helpful. Close numbers, but wrong numbers. Sorry for that. 65%, 18 to 34 said important. 55 to 65 actually said 55% important. 65% said 53. My apologies. I had the wrong. I can't read it up there, so I'm reading it off of here. The other thing that we did, around the ranking of importance, this question was asked to gain insight into how residents rank various priorities. So we were hearing a mix of feedback, where we were hearing from some of the same individuals were saying that having retained forest was extremely important. And then they were also saying it was extremely important to have RS1 or single-family homes. We would also hear that they wanted the same development in Anmore as the rest of Anmore, but they would also like to have commercial. So what we were trying to do with the ranking question is, it's sort of that when everything's important, how do you know what's more important than other things? And that's what this ranking question is about. So it was going through and saying, put in order. So interestingly with this, again, it was still about a 50-50 split between maintaining the current zoning or providing a mix of housing, but regardless, both of those two were still at the top in terms of people's priorities. So that housing mix was still the most important. And then retaining natural areas came, as a pretty significant third, and then the other ones were not considered as important in how the overall importance ratings went. So that's what the ranking question is, to get a sense of those. And again, overall, the intent of this engagement process is we weren't asking residents to make the decision for you. We were asking for input to help inform your decision making, to help you understand how people would consider what they thought was important to help you determine in your decision-making program, along with all the other factors you're assessing. And this engagement summary report will complete that phase 3 engagement process.
Sorry. Thanks, Therese. Any questions from council? Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, just one, really a simple one, I think, but I'm confused by it. We have said that this survey is, hang on, not statistically valid. Is that true?
Thank you. In order to create a statistically valid survey, you need to abide by the targets that the census would give us. So it's a specific number of men, a specific number of women, specific number of people from regions within the community. It's a different exercise that a place where somebody can log in and just participate. Now, even with that caveat, the representation is similar to what the census would be, but we can't call it statistically valid because it wasn't something that was drawn from a general population sample that was perfectly balanced towards what the census would suggest.
So it's not purely about numbers. It's like it's not because the reason I'm asking is this one is not statistically valid, and there were 402 respondents, and there was another survey here done by ANCA, and it says that it is a statistically valid snapshot, and it has 231 respondents, but it's not about the overall number. So is the ANCA one statistically valid and this one is not?
Well, one of the things that both have is the self-selection. So what happens when you're doing a survey that is going to be statistically valid? You would be approached to take part in the survey without knowing what it's about. You wouldn't be sent a postcard to your home or something where you're supposed to log in and to participate. It's more of a community engagement exercise than a survey because of the self-selection. If we were to do, for the sake of argument, a statistically valid sample, we would need to create a sample frame from the entire community, find 400 people and call them until you find a woman aged 35 to 54 who's working and who's going to answer the phone. Or if you want to do it online, finding that respondent in a way. So that's, I mean, you can apply weights to the data, but because of the self-selected nature, neither of them can be considered statistically.
And so don't consider either one statistically valid.
Well, as a snapshot of the community based on the questions that were asked, sure. But it's not, I don't think you can say that one of them is statistically valid because it didn't abide by the guidelines that are required in order to say this is the representation of the community based on the census targets.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it.
My pleasure.
Any other questions? Councillor Richardson.
So just a couple. Like early on when you were talking about like to have your say in the Anmore South website, and you said there's 1,300 views. Is it, if I went on there 100 times, which I did in order to get documents, am I 100 or am I 1?
Those are not unique views, which is something different. We don't have that level of granularity on the village website, whereas we do have that for kind of unique visits on the Have Your Say. So of the visits to the website, I can't tell you how many people that comes to.
Okay. And then what's different about this 35 to 54 age group? What is it? They're always outliers compared to the rest. Is it that they have families, kids, they're wealthy, they're busy, they don't care? Like, why are they different, like, typically?
Well, it's something that we've seen also in surveys that we've conducted in other municipalities. It's a group that is dealing with the situations of their lives differently, having young kids, having aging parents. There's a certain level of animosity sometimes towards changes in the community. And this is different from what we've seen in decades past, where usually you get more resistance from groups that are either older or younger. But maybe Generation X listen to a lot of Soundgarden, I don't know.
Okay. And you just put up that thing that the current zoning people, 39% like that, 38% housing options, and 21% natural areas. But, by changing the current zoning a little bit, by allowing townhouses or something, does that satisfy the 38%? Or is the 38% I want an apartment building? Like, is there any data on that?
There is a way to analyze it because essentially this question allowed people to rank all the choices together. So we have 39% who said my number one issue as far as importance is maintaining, 38% who said my number one issue is the mix. We could look into the responses for the second and third and fourth and fifth to try to figure out what the second thing of importance would be. Because basically, if you're in the 38%, your first option is going to be at the bottom because you want the change.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be maintaining, the other one is going to be similar. So it's more about making some effort and looking into the data to see what the second and third choices would be for both groups.
Okay. And when I went through the comments on a few of the sections, I ranked them. I broke them down to absolute no, absolute yes, and then constructive. And like for the first housing one, I think I got 70% absolutely no, 20% constructive, and 10% go for it. Mm-hmm. Is that significant at all, or is that just blowing gas into the wind?
Well, usually what we have is people who are opposed to something will certainly be more vocal in those types of venues, and they will expand a little bit more on the feedback form than those who are supportive of it. So it's normal to see that type of split. And again, it's not something that can be deemed quantitative. You know, maybe somebody likes the idea and says, I like this and it's great, and somebody who despises it is going to really make an effort to explain why they don't like it.
Okay. Doesn't answer my question. When does it become, like if 100% of people said, I hate this, is that significant?
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
if the question had been, how much do you hate this? It would have been different, but you know, I was brought in to do the phase 3, and the phase 3 was this is what's here, and we're going to rank all of the issues together. Like, I don't think you can grab the feedback form and assume that this is how the community would feel, because it's not the question that we asked.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Webering.
I want to thank you for this report. I think we've been waiting a long time for this. This is the process we voted on, and this is really important information for us to move forward on as we move forward on making a decision. I do want to, maybe I'm going to make a bit of a statement here regarding this process, which has been questioned, and it's very frustrating to me as a councillor when I voted on a process, and I want to tell everybody where this process originally came from, and I'm going to read something. The village supports the completion of a cost-recovered neighborhood planning process funded by the applicant, complete with an extensive community and stakeholder engagement through which the applicant and the village will jointly explore appropriate uses and forms of development. That is statement IOLU 3 in our OCP, which was passed over 10 years ago. So this process is nothing new. The accusation that we're not somehow following a fair process, we are. And this is why it's been very frustrating for me. And I've been waiting for this kind of information, which has been vetted by our staff, not tainted by any special interest group, some real information that we can use to make our decision. So I thank you for that, and this is helping me a lot.
Thanks. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, and thank you for the good explanation as well as framing the survey, giving clarity to the many different options. I appreciate that. I've been further to Councillor Richardson's question about the 35 to 54-year-old. I've been thinking a lot about that as well, and I wonder if I think back to when I was in that age group, and I wasn't really thinking about where I was going to retire. The kids were younger. I wasn't thinking about where they were going to live when they leave. I was just thinking, when do they leave? But so I don't know if that plays into it, but it is striking. It was very striking to me that there was such a difference in that age group compared to the other ones, because I would have thought that, again, someone gets older in the higher age groups, they're a little more set in their ways and they don't like change. So I don't know if you have any further insights on that, or if I'm just...
Well, it's something that we've seen in housing surveys that we've conducted throughout the province, whether it's provincial, whether it's a specific municipality. There's a tension between the two generations, particularly young people who want to experience what it's like to be a homeowner, and the older generation that is also worried about their children, which is different from where we were 5 or 10 years ago, where the numbers were a little bit different. You were more likely to find a scenario where the baby boomer would go, just work harder. I did it in the 70s. Now that's no longer the case. And we've seen housing climbing as an issue at the national level in a way that didn't really happen. It started more as a lower mainland of BC kind of thing, but now you have Calgary, you have Toronto, you have Atlantic Canada with significant levels of concern about housing that just weren't there 4 or 5 years ago.
Good. Thank you. I had a couple of comments. I was reached out by several restaurant residents in regards to another survey that was done. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there was no personal information gathered when this survey of the 400 and something were done. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The other thing is I think the other one was linked to addresses, and which was concerning to a lot of people that data was being calculated. The other thing is that some people heard about it and they weren't able to fill it out unless they joined an association. There was none of that in this regard as well?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Could I get a motion to move receipt? Oh, sorry.
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Mc-
I had wanted to just add to Councillor Richardson's, and I didn't want to interrupt the
Sorry.
process. Is that all right? So
Yeah,
I do
please.
want to say that there is a difference between what you were talking about on the open-ended questions that you were reading, where you were trying to add them up and somehow come with a quantitative result around them, saying, well, this must mean that this many people out of this whole thing, like trying to draw numbers from them, that we're saying, no, it's not quantitative. But that does not mean that that's not part of the important feedback that we have in this engagement summary. And that is why those comments are reflected in the key themes, because those are the concerns that were raised. Those are the things that people have said that they like or don't like. Even if more people were more likely to express it when you're opposed to something, it's still important information, and it is in here for that reason. What we were cautioning you against is trying to do what you were doing, where you were trying to assign data numbers to it, and that's where it kind of falls apart. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, I was aware, because if there's 406 surveys done, there was only like 276 comments. So there is a group that was non-commenting, which I don't completely understand. So I was trying to just see, what's happening.
Good.
I actually wish there was a question asking more specifically, do you love this or hate this? Because I think that would be very useful.
Please. Okay. Good, thank you. So we have, thank you again, Ms. Mickelson and Mario. Really appreciate the work that you've done. Very detailed report. Could I get moved receipt of the report? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we'll now move on to, that was 11A, so now we're going to move on to 9B, which is the Official Community Plan Bylaw Amendment number 686-2023. A report dated May 22nd, 2025 from Mr. Tim Savoy, our planning consultant, is attached. I think it's more convenient for you, Mr. Savoy, to spread out your papers there rather than be at the podium, and hopefully people will be able to hear you all right. So please proceed.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name's Tim Savoy. I'm a planning consultant employed by the village to assist with the processing of this OCP amendment application, for those that don't know me. This report's regarding OCP amendment bylaw number 686-2023, which Council gave first reading to in December 2023. So the purpose of the report, and it's a long one, in the Council agenda is to submit an amended bylaw 686-2023 to Council for consideration of first and second reading, as well as considering scheduling a future public hearing. In the next few minutes, I'll be discussing both general and specific aspects of the application. I'll be providing context about the application, which includes information about the site, the existing OCP, and the application itself, as well as the manner in which we process the application. Then provide highlights of the neighborhood plan, given that the plan is central to the application, and discussing the purpose of the plan and its contents at a very high level. So the subject properties are comprised of 3 legal parcels, and these are bisected by Sunnyside Road. They're approximately 151 acres in size, with a current OCP designation of hillside residential, current zoning of RS-1,
And the thing to note is that both sites are designated as a special study area in the OCP and the regional growth strategy. I discussed the surrounding land uses in the staff report. So, what is official community plan and what is the purpose of this application? The existing official community plan is the long-term vision for the village that's used to guide land use decisions, services, and the physical, social, and economic changes in the community. It's really the basis for all land use decisions that happen in the village. An important thing to note, though, is that all bylaws enacted after you adopt an OCP must be consistent with the plan. So given this, in order to facilitate a future rezoning of the site as proposed, it's necessary to amend the OCP to create consistency between the OCP and the neighborhood plan itself. So the application envisions a new master plan mixed-use community with a variety of housing types, as well as commercial, office, civic use, park, and conservation and recreation lands. So a number of amendments to the OCP are necessary. There's multiple text and policy amendments. There's the inclusion of the actual detailed neighborhood plan itself, revisions to the regional context statement and mapping, as well as revisions to Schedule B1 and B2, which are your land use maps, the road network map, and parks and trails maps. And for those that are looking at the agenda, there's a full marked up version of the OCP which shows all additions and deletions. So in addition to those changes, there are changes, future changes regarding Metro 2050, which is our regional growth strategy. And these are amendments to the regional urban containment boundary to include the Anmore South neighborhood to permit future connection to sanitary sewer and water services, as well as a land use designation change from rural to general urban and from rural to conservation and recreation lands as identified on the land use maps. So these amendments necessitate changes to your regional context statement as indicated in the draft report. Talked about this a little bit the previous presentation. The terms of reference included 4 distinct phases as approved by council. So these phases are now complete and the application is ready for consideration of council. So the neighborhood plan is really a site-specific land use vision that provides a framework to assist the reconciliation of land use, environment, density, infrastructure, and implementation. It really is the guide for managing future rezoning, subdivision, and development permit applications. While the neighborhood plan includes policies and guidelines specific to the Anmore South properties, there are a number of general policies in the existing OCP that inform the development of the plan. I've listed these on the slide, as well a more detailed description in the staff report. The neighborhood plan includes 8 chapters, but I'll be speaking primarily about Chapter 4, neighborhood land uses. So with respect to land uses, the neighborhood plan envisions up to 2,202 units, comprised of 20 single-family homes, 120 duplexes, 760 townhouses, and 1,302 apartments. While there's flexibility built in the plan to adjust the unit types, the total units are not to exceed the 2,202 units. In addition to the residential uses, the plan contemplates a 20,000 square foot community center, 2 civic reserve sites totaling 1.19 acres, 2 mixed-use sites totaling 3.7 acres, between 50,000 and 61,800 square feet of commercial floor space, and 10,000 square feet of professional office space. In addition, 52.76 acres of conservation and recreation lands, 10.72 acres of neighborhood parks, and approximately 5 kilometers of off-street trails are proposed. And of course, as well as new municipal infrastructure funded by the development. Anmore South is projected to be built out through phased development over 20 to 25 years to ensure that the infrastructure and services required to support the growth of the new community are in place. And the neighborhood is expected to develop in accordance with these sequences. This is something new for the village. Under the Local Government Act, an OCP may designate development permit areas where they relate to the purposes set out in the Local Government Act, Section 488(1). So in this case, development permits areas have been identified to respond to existing site conditions, protect development from potential hazards, and ensure new development is in character with the existing community for this neighborhood. The Anmore South Plan contemplates a number of benefits. new housing forms such as duplex, townhouse, apartments to accommodate a variety of housing needs, movement towards the targets outlined in your interim housing needs assessment, additional commercial development to serve the daily needs of the community, new recreational opportunities to be funded by development in the form of a 20,000 square foot community center. As well, potential increase in bus services in the medium term through developer-provided funding, future vehicle and pedestrian connectivity between Crystal Creek Drive and Sunnyside Road, as well as from Fern Drive to Sunnyside Road, 2 additional municipally dedicated parcels of land, roughly over 1.19 acres, and the extension of Metro Vancouver water and services to Anmore. 10.72 acres of neighborhood parklands as well, in addition to 52.76 acres of conservation and recreation lands. The plan also contemplates new greenways and community pathways, spaces where residents can gather, as well as rental homes in apartment format for use by SaskMet volunteer firefighters. And lastly, 397 jobs. So to conclude, the neighborhood plan vision advances direction provided in the council's strategic plan and has been drafted taking into consideration numerous Anmore OCP policies. On balance, the project offers a unique opportunity to comprehensively develop the site in a manner that significantly increases the diversity of housing units in Anmore, benefiting the village. And for these reasons and the reasons outlined previously, staff are recommending proceeding with the amended bylaw as follows. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. And I just wanted to thank all the staff for their presentations. After the past few weeks and after much reflections, I would like to suggest a reduction in the number of apartment units in exchange for additional ground-oriented units, which could address some of the concerns being raised, while also reflecting on input that is of having a mix of housing is important. With that, I'm going to move a referral amendment, and that's the proposed amendment bylaw 686-2023, included in the May 27th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda, be referred to staff to prepare and report back at the earliest opportunity for council's consideration with an amendment to reduce the overall unit count by substantially reducing the number of units, and by adding more ground-oriented units, and for staff to provide comments or to comment with the applicant on potential fiscal impacts regarding the unit composition change and report back to council. I've put forth that amendment. Second?
Second.
Open up for discussion. Councillor Webering.
I support this. I think, we are hearing what's being said in the community, and I think there is not an appetite for this density. I mean, we've gone from 3,500 to 2,200, and I don't know what the number is going to be, but I guess we'll let staff determine that with the applicant. So I do support this.
Oh. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. I also support it. It has, I think we've all heard multiple times, the concern with the density, so I feel like it's a good recommendation, and I will support it, and that's all.
Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I'm in support. I have a few questions, if I may, first, if that's okay.
It just can be on the referral motion, though, because that's what's on the table right now.
So I can't ask anything about his presentation?
You'll get a chance to, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the apartments are an issue for me. They always have been. If I drive around the area, there's no 6-story structures more than like 800 meters from a SkyTrain station. There are definitely nothing like that 5 kilometers away from a SkyTrain station. So I don't think they have a place here. So yes, I'm in support of that.
Thank you. Councillor Trowbridge.
I support it as well. Excuse me. I've heard from individuals in the community that are both leaning towards and against the development, and from both sets of those perspectives, I've heard too many condos. We need to reduce that, so absolutely in support.
Yeah, I've drafted up a little note here before I put it to a question. What I've heard loud and clear from the community and what I've raised, or what I've read in the report from Mickelson Consulting, is that there is a general understanding that something will happen at Anmore South. It's private property. It is noted that the community is somewhat split on the importance of having a mix of housing. However, residents seem to appreciate the idea of having some form of ground-oriented housing. There is a broad support for protecting natural areas, and there is also a mix of support for commercial space and possible recreation amenities. I hear concerns about the number of apartments units in the current application. While we've heard that some of our residents feel it's important to have a broader mix of housing, we also heard that the proposed density is too high for others, has been commented by my colleagues, and we need to consider these concerns. I just want to stress, I remain open-minded to the process, and should this OCP bylaw amendment advance to a public hearing, I look forward to hearing from the community, all of the community. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amended motion, or the referral motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to, I don't have a mayor's report because we just met last week, council report. Any councillor reports? No? No? Oh, Councillor Webering, please.
I just have a quick council report. I understand that there is a sign out there with my name personally on it. I just want to thank whoever put that up. I'm going to go snap a picture of it. And Councillor Trowbridge was really quite upset that he didn't get a sign, but apparently he has one now, so I think he's quite happy.
I lost.
Okay, so thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any chief administrator officers reports? Is there anything?
Thank you. Just a reminder to everybody once again that property tax notices have been mailed out and due date is July 2nd. So please check mailboxes and payment options for that. Additionally, starting the beginning of June, we will be shifting our bylaw enforcement into a seasonal schedule. So you will see our bylaw official out and about on Saturdays or Sundays at times. His schedule will change back and forth throughout the summer months until September, and he'll be working some Saturdays, some Sundays, and some evenings. And contact information for any bylaw enforcement issues is on the village website. Thank you.
Good, thank you. We don't have some information. The draft minutes of the Finance Committee held on April 15th. Anyway, before we go to public question period, I will reiterate, on the basis of legal advice, Council will not be responding to any question regarding or related to the Anmore South OCP bylaw amendment at this time. So open up for public question period. Yeah, please, yeah, if you could just, your name and address, please. Sure.
Hello, my name is Enzo Piccolo. Oops, sorry, my name is Enzo Piccolo. I'm at 2334 Sunnyside Road. Don't start the clock yet, or they did already. I was just going to ask if I can ask a question regarding my property. Is that okay right now?
What is it? Sorry.
If I can ask a question, if my question pertains to just my property, none of the stuff that went over today.
Yep.
That's all right? Okay, good. I've got, I guess, I've got a question. It's a two-part question. There should be a bit of a backstory, though, because the councillors won't know what I'm talking about. Maybe Mayor McEwen knows what I'm going to talk about. There's a storm pipe that runs through my property, and it services the people of Maple Court. Don't know if there's people from Maple Court here, but they might not know this. Mayor McEwen was nice enough to come out 3 years ago and mention that this pipe is not on any of the books. Nobody knows about this storm pipe. It doesn't serve my property whatsoever, but it's old and it's breaking, and my basement is flooding. So I've had a $100,000 renovation done, and every heavy rainfall we get, my water alarm that I installed goes off. So I've emailed Scott Donaldson, Chris Boyd, Mayor McEwen 3 times, crickets. Nobody's responded to me whatsoever. So I thought the last rainfall we had, which was that hailstorm, I thought, you know what, I'm going to City Hall. So I went to City Hall and I spoke to Lena,
Lena.
Lena.
Yeah.
And I said, I need to talk to somebody. I need to get this dealt with. I need to figure out what's going on. I can't keep doing it. I've spent thousands of dollars on trying to take on everybody's water from Maple Court into my home. My perimeter drain can't take it. It's, you know, and it's pristine. I've gone through all the homework. So anyway, long story short, crickets again. Nobody responded to me. So I'm being ignored. Now here, I only get 2 minutes to talk. Everybody else gets to talk to their free will about everything else. I'm a taxpayer. We just got tax notice. It's due. My time is up. I have yet to say the question. I don't think it's fair. I should be able to discuss this in private, but
Yes.
ideally I've had to come here and talk about it. And my question is, who owns the pipe? Village of Anmore or Enzo Piccolo?
I can't answer that, Mr. Boyd.
I don't have a definitive answer because, as you mentioned earlier, that it is not within a village right away. It's not in any of our books, so it's I would say it's a difficult answer to provide you here in public.
I need an answer.
Well, I don't
can't-
have an answer for you.
Otherwise, you're coming to my house at 3 in the morning to help me put the pump in so we can get the water out of my house so the basement doesn't flood. I can't keep doing this. You know, it rains a lot, as everybody knows. This is ridiculous.
I'll set up a meeting and we'll come in.
Well, you should have done that when I emailed you. Somebody should have responded.
I've been to your house. I've answered your email
Yeah,
whenever
3
you have.
years ago. We've had 3 emails now. Chris Boyd's been in the emails, crickets. So, I mean, you know, this is ridiculous. I'm pissed, as you can tell.
Yep.
Nobody should live like this. Everybody I talk to says it's ridiculous. So, what's the story here? And now you're talking on bringing on 2,000 some odd more people. You can't take care of who's here now. I'm one guy being ignored. It's ridiculous. I got to lawyer up. Do you guys need another lawsuit on your hands? I don't think so. So, you know, enough's enough.
Thank you. I'll reach out to you. Any other questions?
Greg Mulpass, 2300 Sunnyside Road. I first just wanted to thank the council for today's meeting. I thought it was an excellent step forward, and it's lovely to hear that there's some open minds. The one question I had was really around financial matters and our village's long-term financial plans as they adhere to our growth overall, infrastructure needs. We're hearing lots a little about fire concerns, all kinds of things. This is not inclusive of Anmore South. We already have 700, we've made a commitment already to add 769 homes based on Ravi Collins' ask. It's becoming increasingly apparent to me that we're really dependent on our neighbors of Balcarra and Port Moody. How can we work better together with those two communities? How can we start building a more consistent regional plan with them? Because it does feel like we operate in somewhat silos. Is there an opportunity here?
I would argue that we do work very collaboratively with them. We have a fire department that we both share collaboratively. So, you know, the financial, I would suggest get involved. Be part of the, you know, come to the finance meetings if you have concerns. Hear the challenges that we have and the challenges that we've overcome. Look forward to it. It's great. It'd be great to have more people involved.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Thanks.
Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road, where we've lived for 30 years. And my question is, what has been the village response to our MLA's offer to provide a presentation on the provincial housing legislation, as there seems to be considerable confusion about how these regulations apply and don't apply to the village of Anmore?
Yeah, a response letter has been sent back to our MLA from his letter. So
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
A response letter has been sent back to our MLA.
The letter, though, was not in the agenda package.
It just went out, I think, this morning. So, yeah, thanks.
How can residents see what's in that letter, or can you tell us what's in the letter? That's even better.
I can't. We are in contact with the local MLA. Thanks.
Are residents going to get to see the response or not?
Yep. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's in public. Yeah, thanks.
How will it be provided to residents?
It'll be posted posted on the agenda, I would imagine. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, this is just a follow-up from the earlier, Harriet Chang, 147 Fern Drive. I just wanted to ask you about transportation infrastructure and related to a fire emergency evacuation. And I have been on your website, it's great. I love how the fire chief has made recommendations. Thank you so much. I have met with Mayor John McEwen. Thank you so much for your input and feedback on implementing potentially more fire hydrants. Just wondering if there's any other ideas you have, because obviously this is very, very high on my mind. And after watching the documentary that I shared.
Perfect opportunity. I think it's the first week of June. We have we have a fire trustee meeting, which we'll post on our website. Strongly suggest you come out and talk to the trustees, because again, the fire department is shared by both municipalities, and that's where, and the fire chief is the one that gives that sort of responses. It's the 5th, June 5th. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Councillor Weber.
Sort of as a side project, I've been working on the last two ministers of transportation. I've even proposed changing the whole MRN road network and making it a TransLink thing, so that a community can't just eliminate a future MRN road easement that's going to affect this community or any other community. I think we have to realize that, and we learned this the hard way with the NDP's housing policy, that we can only control growth so much in Anmore. It will eventually grow. It will be a matter of time when we need other routes out. Maybe we have to start taking down trees as we populate. So it's certainly something I'm concerned about.
Yep. Paul, I absolutely concur with you. Development is absolutely inevitable. I get that. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just thinking about our current infrastructure. What kinds of plans have we thought about as a community, how we can improve that? Because right now, I don't think they're sufficient based on what I'm seeing in the research I've done and our population being 2,500. So I'm just thinking about future. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I just got notified, we are actually, hold on, we are also under a new wildfire resiliency plan with a consultant that we're just bringing on as well. So come next Thursday to the fire trustee meeting.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you. Thanks.
It's Leslie Hannigan, 1065 Thompson. I'm going back to that reason that we were shut down before the leak.
We will not be discussing any of that, I'm sorry.
Okay. All I'm asking is about what regulation it is. I just want to know what change in the legal, like the provincial legislation and some local government act, recent changes that caused you to be able to shut us down. And I don't understand. I asked on have your say, and they said it's outside of our scope. Yeah. I asked the MLA, and the MLA apparently got a note back from I think from Karen possibly, that said, we are aware of and familiar with the legislative requirements, and I trust that of the current matter at hand. But he doesn't understand it either. So I just don't understand where it comes from that we were not able to ask about Anmore South. And I've asked that, I've emailed, I've tried everything, and nobody will give me the specific legislation that does that.
I'm sorry, I can't comment. Pardon? Yeah.
There is no answer, you just shut us down, but there's no legislation?
Let's be clear, I'm not shutting anybody down on the basis of a legal opinion. We're not supposed to comment.
No, I get the legal one. I understand that. I'm talking about 2 weeks ago.
I will not be answering any questions related to this, sorry. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Kirsten Dumont-Aubrey from 1495 East Road. What I want to talk about, not talking about this, but with expansion going on in the village, my question is, why is it so difficult to make infill more available? It's infill.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm going to recuse myself because my property is... Yeah, and same with... I'll recuse myself. Yeah, so... Thank you. can leave this here? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I don't know why it is so difficult for people that have been here for many, many years, like 26 years, to be restricted by the confinements of infill. We can't remain in place and we can't retire here. Most of the guidelines are fair and reasonable, and the aim above all is to protect the look and aesthetic of the village. It is to minimize disruptive infrastructure while developing a lot with slow expansion. The guidelines of the bylaw are far too strict and were put in place to make it very difficult for us, to be honest, to make use of it. Given that huge developments are now on the table, it seems even more unfair that established long-time residents may be forced out of their homes as they can't afford to retire in place. The restriction of frontage on a public highway should be amended. Many lots are old and unique, and they were divided a long time ago, and they're not the standard shape. There should be a baseline and a provision to review on a case-by-case scenario. When a property complies with 80 to 90% of the desired requirements, but through lot size or aspect can't reach all, but adds other ideals, for example, secluded development, tree retention, the infrastructure is already in place. 50 meters on the public highway is to ensure that no one on the highway is to ensure that no lot on the highway has less than 25 meters, I guess. If you divide it in two, each one would be 25 meters.
Can I answer your question?
No, I'll finish and then.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it time's
In our
up?
case, the lot is long and narrow, and the existing property has 28 meters on the public highway, and the second lot would be behind and not interfere with the public highway. So the wording should be changed, maybe, that in the creation of two lots, no one lot should have less than 25 meters frontage on the public highway, wherein the second lot must not interfere with the public highway except for access purposes, only in which case the access should be existing by road or laneway. I could talk about the amenity contribution, which I think is far too much, and it should be reduced. But anyway, my question is can it be amended?
A couple of things. First of all, your first question about why is it prescriptive or restrictive? When the notion of infill came to us, Councillor Weberink and myself formed a task group with We2 and I think five.
Yeah, it was 2014.
And so
we were part
at
of it.
that point in time, we were reacting to what residents told us they would like and not like, and we created that. So it has been amended at least once, maybe a second time, and it is currently under review with staff right now.
Yes, exactly. So will we have an opportunity to look at things like this, for example? Or like it's under review by you guys?
It's under review right now as we speak.
Can we put in our opinions for?
Sure. Yeah, just send it. Where should it go, Karen?
I did submit an email for you to be circulated, but I don't know if anybody got it.
I'm not sure. I get a lot of emails. I'm not sure if I have it or not, but if it has come in, I'd love to see it so it can be sent to us.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. No. Well. Sandy DeShatson, 1058 Magnolia Way. Yes, I'm waiting. Sandy DeShatson, 1058 Magnolia Way. I have a question where I want to thank the lady. I couldn't see the lady about the survey. I just want to go back to the key themes that were not quantified.
I'm sorry again, this is part of a development that we cannot talk about.
Okay, I know you're not allowed to answer, but I'm not just going to ask my question just for reference for people and to push them to think about it. But I understand that I know you don't want to answer, but I can just ask the question.
Yeah, we can't engage. The ideal time would have been at the start of the meeting, but please proceed.
Just going to ask my question, and I understand you're not allowed to answer. That's fine. Thank you. So why were the key themes not quantified? They were probably the most important input. It means that the most important issues, topics, were not addressed in the survey. Like Councillor Richardson said, the most basic question was not asked. Probably the most significant part was the ranking importance. It means that you don't have a silent majority. Providing a mix of housing options is possible with the current zoning. Why has this council not promoted the different possibilities and options allowed by the current zoning in our CP? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we wrap up?
Neil Lyons, 1024 Ravenswood Drive. First of all, I'd like to thank Council and Mayor McEwen for slowing this process down a little bit. I think it's good for Council, and I think it's good for the residents. I do have only one question, that's for Tim Savoy. And no, Tim, I'm not picking on you.
If it's anything pertaining to do with Anmore South, he will not be answering it.
It has more to do with...
anything to do at all with it, he will not be able to answer it.
Okay, can I talk in general terms to development? Just general terms? This is a general question.
As long as it doesn't reference
has nothing to do with Anmore South. Tim, let me word this so that Mr. McEwen is acceptable to you. Hang on a second. Let me get my thoughts together. When a plan is passed, and we go from, if it goes from, let's say, a rural to urban.
That's related specifically to this subdivision, so I'm going to have to stop you
there. When a plan is passed, is it not possible for a developer to come back and ask for higher density? It has nothing to do with Anmore.
It does, actually. So
no, it doesn't. It's a general question. Come on.
Okay.
Let us ask a question.
That's a general question. You could email in, and we'll see if we can vet it through our attorney to be able to answer.
Well, Tim is here right now. I'd like him to address it now, please.
Nope. No. Okay, thanks.
Hello, Kim Robbins, Crystal Creek. I'm new to council meetings, so
welcome.
Thank you. I just have a question about this area here that's been clear cut here. There's been some conversation about people talking about wanting a coffee shop or something in the community. And I guess the idea is that possibly that would be something that would be further developed down the road. I'm wondering if it makes sense for it to possibly be something to be considered here, because most of Anmore kind of is this direction and down East Road. That's so far down the way. I'm thinking if we want to try to get people walking and on their bikes, et cetera, being central, which I think this kind of is central for Anmore, wouldn't it make a lot of sense to have a coffee shop or something here so it would be sort of a community hub that makes sense to be somewhere where people could walk or reasonably bike?
So, Ms. Robinson, some good comments. We actually are in the process in the final stages of solidifying a lease. There'll be a coffee shop that will be going in right in this building in the basement. Yeah.
Perfect.
Now, regarding the thing there is a plan in place that we're developing right now, which will be, we're going to continue make the park one whole sole parcel. Ravenswood will exit straight out to Sunnyside, so it will be one, I believe it's pretty close to 5-acre parcel. And we're in the design stage and input stage right now about some things that we'd like to see in there as well. We're going to be retreeing it as well. So So please reach out to me and I'll show you the tentative plan that we have and meet with
No,
you.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful news, because when we're talking about commercial, we're rural. All of us know we have to kind of go out of here. I mean, we plan our trips now, because if you run out of milk for your coffee, you're drinking it black for the most part, because you're not going to go. So the little bit of commercial that would be there wouldn't mitigate having to do our trips anyway.
Perfect.
So the coffee shop is brilliant.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry. We'll take 2 more speakers and then yeah.
Hi there, Michelle Malpass, 2300 Sunnyside Road. I'm just curious, just as to the reasons why you've been advised that we can't speak about Anmore South. So I know you've received letters from Port Moody, you've received letters from Belcarra, letters from MLA, letters from ANCA, and I'm just curious how that is coming to be that.
I think it was 2 meetings ago, our attorney's here right now, we were served with some legal papers, and so with those, we have to err on the side of caution and have absolutely no discussion whatsoever. So.
But that's still a choice that you're making to not speak about Anmore South, and I think one of the purposes of the letters.
Sorry, we can't continue on talking about it. Thanks. Okay, last speaker.
Hello, my name's Teresa Reed. My family has resided at 1525 East Road since 1986. And we've enjoyed immensely our life in Anmore Parkland. In 2016, I approached council with respect to the road expansion that was being carried out at that time on East Road. My concern was traffic. My concern was speed. And in that time, I had contacted the RCMP and asked if they would graciously do a speed watch test near our property on East Road. And they did that in June of 2016. I shared the findings with council. The RCMP were concerned by the amount of traffic, by the amount of speed, and by the amount of non-visible road access.
If you could lead to a question, that's
my question
please.
Is, since 2016 to 2025, what has Anmore done to reduce speed, to reduce risk? We are at the end, we're at the end of a road. And if anything catastrophic would happen, either on East Road or the other access out of Ioko Road, it's catastrophic. There's enough time. I'm just concerned, Mayor McEwen, because as we grow, which we will, other communities will follow along to join the amenities of Anmore. So it does not just isolate us to current population within our community. Yeah. And this has been extremely prevalent since COVID and with Bunsen Lake.
So two things. Back in 2016, our road engineers, it was pretty obvious that that section of road was too narrow, and it was actually dangerous with buses and that. So that's why it was designed. And I remember coming up to your house and talking to you about it, about how to be widened. We get regular reports, and we also ask the Neil Romer, our RCMP person up here, and they do speed monitoring, and they have not brought to the attention that there is a speed issue in Anmore that they have recorded at this point in time.
Right.
There is a bit of an issue with people running stoplights, but there is no issue with speed according to the analysis that they've done. So
I know.
Thank you.
You did a second analysis from our Saturday morning analysis in June to a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock.
Good.
And it was not comparable because the traffic at that time, you just can't relate Tuesday morning to a Saturday, Tuesday morning in July to a Saturday at 10:30.
I'm going to have to...
And you widened it greater than the MRN requirements. And that was my concern, and that was our family and our neighbors' concern. And the concern is there's been an influx of more people loving Anmore that don't live there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to ask you, we got other people, and then we're going to have to shut it down, okay?
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
You need to do speed watches and share the results with the people that reside here.
We do.
Because it kills.
Yeah, we do. Thanks. We're at 25 minutes, so two more, or just one more question, and that.
It's a quick comment, not a question. Lisa Johnston,
We need
180
a question
Hemlock.
then, please. This is question period. So could you form it in a question?
I'm allowed to form it as a question.
Sure.
Okay, council members have a duty under both the Community Charter and the Local Government Act to conduct decision-making in a manner that is open, transparent, and responsive to the public. This includes ensuring residents are reasonably informed and given the opportunity to participate meaningfully in the government of their community, particularly when an open or when an official community plan amendment is involved. That's the only time I'm saying that word. The claim of legal advice does not override these statutory obligations. Legal advice is not law. It is confidential guidance. Council retains full discretion over whether to engage with the public, and tonight and the prior night's refusal to answer questions represents a failure of governance and public accountability. So my question would be how long?
Ms. Johnson, we will
How long
always
do we have to
protect, as
wait?
elected representatives, we're here to represent the village and to protect the village as an entity. We will always take the advice of our attorney when any of this stuff comes up. So
So the
your
question
comments
is how
are
long?
complete.
How long until we can ask questions?
Until we get notified otherwise. So thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Moved, second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously.